Hello, it's very good to have you with us at this hour. I'm Daniel Che. President Park Geun-hye returns home after wrapping up a state visit to France following her East Africa tour. The 12-day trip produced results with achievements in areas from development aid to the creative economy, as well as support for countering North Korea's nuclear threats. Song Ji-sun starts us off with a summary of the diplomatic tour.
Building cooperation for the future was the purpose of President Park's marathon tour of 3 East African nations and France. South Korea is eager to jointly foster growth engines with them and share the resulting prosperity they should bring.
한국은 아프리카와 호혜적이고 미래지향적인 경제 협력을 이루어 나가고자 합니다. 저는 프랑스와 협력하에 양국 간 호혜적 발전은 물론 국제 평화와 번영을 위해서도 함께 노력해 가고자 합니다.
In East Africa, Seoul came armed with customized development plans for each stop of Ethiopia, Uganda, and Kenya. South Korea will help them build industrial complexes based on their individual needs. In France, the creative economy was the buzzword, with the focus on fostering new industries and startups.
Korea, with the African nations and France, sealed ties for mutual growth and cooperation towards the future. The economic cooperation agreements will provide momentum for boosting exports and taking another leap to revive the economy.
During the president's trip to Africa, Seoul introduced a brand new development assistance program called Korea Aid, offering mobile healthcare and Korean culture contents. Seoul and Paris also agreed to jointly assist the development of the African continent. President Park also garnered support in pressing North Korea for its nuclear ambitions. While Kenya and Ethiopia vowed to fully implement the UN sanctions on the regime, Uganda went a step further, cutting all military ties with Pyongyang. France, a vocal opponent of the North's illicit activities, reaffirmed its stern stance against nuclear proliferation.
As a permanent member of the UN Security Council, France will work towards reining in North Korea's nuclear provocations, which threaten peace and security in Northeast Asia and the world.
Countering the challenges slowing growth and North Korea's continued provocations, President Park returned home with cooperation from the international community, further cementing her 2 pillars of economy and national security. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Before flying back to Seoul, President Park stopped by the southeastern city of Grenoble to check out the hydrogen-powered cars being tested at a facility there. All part of efforts to boost cooperation in the field of fostering new industries. Here's our Yoon Shin with the details.
Grenoble was home to President Park Geun-hye 42 years ago, when she studied at a university in the city. Her return visit was made to underscore the country's cooperation in new high-tech industries, particularly hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. President Park surveyed the hydrogen fuel cell technology at a research institute run by Air Liquide, the world's leading industrial gas company with a 30% share of the global market. With their filters, hydrogen cars can help cleanse the air while reducing fine dust and can travel 600 kilometers on a single charge of 3 minutes. The hydrogen in the fuel cell combines with the oxygen in the air to produce the electricity to power the vehicle without generating any byproducts but water. The French firm also sealed an agreement with Korea's Hyundai Motor for research and development of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Hyundai Motor launched the world's first hydrogen vehicle in 2013.
수소 전기차에 관심이 많고 그래서 현대차에서도 이렇게 같이 오셨는데 이제 제가 듣기로는 수소 전기차가 충전하는 속도도 굉장히 빠르고 여러 가지 좋은 점이 많은데 이제 그 충전소를 설치하려면 그 구축하는 비용이 상당히 높다고 그래요. 그래서 그런 문제가 해결이 돼야 사실 수소 전기차도 다닐 수가 있지 않을까 하는 생각에서.
President Park vowed to relax regulations to support the commercialization of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Yoon Shin, Arirang News.
Over in Singapore, South Korea's defense chief discussed North Korea's nuclear ambition with his French counterpart. During the talks, Han Ming-gu thanked Jean-Yves Le Drian for his country's initiative in leading the way for European nations to take a more active role in punishing Pyongyang for its continued provocations. Le Drian expressed France's willingness to further strengthen coordination with South Korea to tighten the noose on the communist state. Aside from that, the two ministers also touched on ways to increase cooperation in various areas of national defense. The South Korean defense minister wraps up his three-day overseas trip with a one-on-one with his Swiss counterpart, Guy Parmelin. Staying with the Shangri-la Dialogue in Singapore, denuclearization of Pyongyang and THAAD deployment to South Korea topped the agenda on the last day of Asia's largest security meeting. Our Kim Hyun-bin files this report from the island nation.
Chinese Admiral Sun Jianguo used a speech to global defense chiefs Sunday to highlight his country's efforts in pursuing a nuclear-free Korean peninsula. Sun took the podium on the final day of the three-day Asia Security Summit, dubbed the Shangri-la Dialogue.
China has made significant efforts and has been under a lot of pressure. We have done a lot to maintain peace and stability in the Northeast Asian region and to denuclearize the Korean peninsula.
The deputy chief of China's Central Military Commission added that the deployment of the U.S.-led missile defense system THAAD to South Korea will undermine Beijing's national security.
As a serviceman, it is more than clear that the deployment of THAAD far exceeds the scope of defending against North Korea and affects China's security.
China claims the U.S. military's THAAD radar system in South Korea could be used to spy on Beijing's military activities, in addition to its stated task of detecting and shooting down North Korean missiles. Seoul and Washington want to deploy THAAD to better protect the South against the ever-growing threat posed by Pyongyang's missile and nuclear program. Seoul and Washington have been actively discussing the possibility of deploying the U.S. sophisticated missile defense system to the Korean peninsula after Pyongyang conducted its fourth nuclear test and intercontinental ballistic missile launch earlier this year. Experts say China needs to put more effort into denuclearizing North Korea and dismantling the regime's missile programs, or the issue is likely to remain a thorn in Seoul-Beijing relations. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Singapore.
Yoon Byung-se is in Cuba, becoming the first South Korean foreign minister to visit the island nation. He will also look to improve bilateral relations and encourage Cuba to help turn up the heat on its longtime ally, North Korea. Connie Kim has more on the diplomatic trip.
South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se is in Cuba on a visit that's being billed as part of Seoul's efforts to lay a foundation for improving bilateral ties with the island nation. Seoul and Havana have not had any diplomatic relations since the Cuban Revolution in 1959. Minister Yoon, who will attend the two-day summit of the Association of Caribbean States, said he is anticipating a good outcome in the long term if the two nations build trust in various fields, seen as an expression of hope for normalization of bilateral diplomatic ties. The Park Geun-hye administration has put in subtle but various efforts to improve relations with Cuba. I believe my visit to Cuba symbolizes that and marks an important milestone in our bilateral relations. Seoul's foreign ministry did not mention the possibility of bilateral talks with high-ranking officials from Cuba, but Yoon's visit is expected to add to the pressure on North Korea, which has had ties to Cuba since 1960. North Korea has recently made efforts to boost ties with Cuba amid stronger international sanctions on Pyongyang. Kim Young-chul, the vice chairman of the Central Committee of the North's ruling Workers' Party, met with Cuban President Raul Castro last month, where the two reaffirmed their cooperative ties. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un sent his best wishes to Castro on his 85th birthday earlier this month. Speculation in Seoul is that North Korea will continue its efforts to maintain close ties with Cuba to hinder the possible burgeoning diplomatic relationship between Seoul and Havana. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
The Korean government is about to make a major investment in improving social welfare for its citizens. The Social Security Committee announced on Sunday that it has gotten the green light for a $52 billion funding package for welfare projects being carried out by 187 government departments in South Korea this year. The projects are already being implemented in different corners of the nation, and with a budget boost, the departments will be able to provide more customized services. The Welfare Ministry also plans to provide greater support to efforts to grant more Koreans access to such benefits. One of the largest cycling competitions in Asia has kicked off in the city of Busan. Our Shin Se-min was at Gumi for the 2016 Tour de Korea.
Cyclists suit up, gear up, and warm up for this year's Tour de Korea 2016, marking its 10th anniversary this year. The 1,222-kilometer route stretches across 7 cities. The 200 cyclists took off from the southern port city of Busan on Sunday en route to Gumi in Gyeongsangbuk-do province. The global cycling teams participating this year have once again elevated the competition. But with the race's designation this year as a 2.1 category race on the Asia Tour, the stakes are higher than ever.
So the Korea is like now one of the biggest races in the world, to be honest. It's what we call a 2.1 race, so the category of the race is very, very high. We're disappointed. We would prefer to have seen the mountains of Korea more than the flatlands, but it's still a beautiful country and we're going to enjoy our stay here, I'm sure.
6 of the 20 teams are from Korea, while the rest are from around the world. Despite the race being an annual competition, some of the Korean cyclists are taking this year's race much more seriously, given its place in the racing schedule.
With this year's Rio Olympics coming up, my record in this competition is all the more important, and I look forward to drawing out a good result.
Stage is announced every day, and the champion of the entire competition is determined after the times from all 8 stages are tallied. The professional racers 200 and all will stage a fierce competition against the backdrop of Korea's picturesque landscapes, ultimately finishing the race in Seoul on June 12th. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Gumi.
Now for a quick look at the weather forecast before we go. Be careful on the road if you are driving in Korea on Monday. Hazy conditions will hinder visibility in various parts of the country. A light drizzle is in the forecast for the southern part of the nation as well. Temperature-wise, Seoul will start the day at 19 degrees Celsius, while Chuncheon and Gangneung will be at 15. The mercury will rise all the way to 29 in Seoul and Chuncheon and to 23 in Gangneung. That's Korea for you. Let's check out the weather conditions in your neck of the woods and around the world. That's all from us for now. As we usher in another work week, let us inspire ourselves with the words of the late great Muhammad Ali. Don't just count the days, make the days count. Thank you for watching.